Dan was one of the key organizers in the or ally organizers in last year in the Land Alliance March, and this year is again an organizer with the River Run. And we're very pleased to have him here today to talk a bit about the Grassy Narrows demonstration coming up in September. Dan.
Thank you so much for having me. I think many of you know about Grassy Narrows and the history, but I will do a quick overview and mostly want to save space and time to be able to have a discussion, answer any questions you might have, or dive into your thoughts. I've worked for Grassy for about a year now. As Nick mentioned, I was part of a big crew of people that helped put on the Land Alliance March last year. It takes hundreds of volunteers to make it happen, and a testament to the work is that Grassy, as you know, probably has been organizing for 20 or more years, and building movements and building partnerships across Turtle Island and globally. So they have done so much work with massive organizations. And we actually got a call from CBC last week because they were saying, we're seeing this upcoming March, this river run is being shared everywhere, with such a diverse set of supporters. So it's Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream, Giant Unions, Amnesty International, all these groups that Grassy has built relationships with and has really paid off. And we're really seeing a lot of the fruits of that labor. And SCAN showed up big time last year, and shout out to John particularly. Thank you for all your coordination and help. We had a smaller rally in the summer, and then we had the much bigger one in September, and SCAN had a big presence at both places. So thank you for showing up and for mobilizing your communities and your spaces and coming out on a big day. All of those numbers mean a lot. There's the political part of this for sure, which I'll chat about, but also what Grassy organizers often mention is how personally powerful it feels for them on this day. The Grassy is a small community of 800 people, and to be able to come to Toronto and be literally surrounded by thousands of people with so many different banners from all kinds of movements, helps give them the energy and the excitement to continue organizing throughout the year when it is can be so hard when it's just their community. So there's obviously a political piece that I think, we all understand intrinsically. And the part that actually really drives me a lot is the personal piece. So I think someone's going to share a slideshow I've got. I'm going to just do a couple quick slides and a short video from the Grassy youths for everybody to see, and then I'll open it up for questions. Thanks, Elizabeth. So you can do the next slide. And the next slide. So the map land acknowledgement was, I think, appropriate. For folks who don't know, Grassy's up near Kenora, about an hour and a half north of Kenora, near Thunder Bay, near Winnipeg. And the spill that we'll be talking about, the mercury poisoning, happened in Dryden, which you can see on the right. So quite a distance from Grassy, and still had such an impact. Next slide. We'll skip this video, but I'll encourage you to share it a little later on and watch it. So in the 60s, a paper mill dumped 9,000 kilos into the Wabigoon River, and mercury levels went way off the charts, much higher than they should be for any human consumption. And Grassy, which was completely economically dependent on fisheries and lodges, went from 90% employment to 10% employment. And then we start to see the neurological signs of mercury poisoning. If you go to the next slide. Loss of sense, touch, vision, increased suicidality. There was a heartbreaking study that came out last year where they marked and showed how much the youth suicide rate is higher in Grassy than even other First Nations, which we know is higher than non-Indigenous populations. And they traced the cause back to the mercury poisoning. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we'll play this video. It's the youth of Grassy sharing some of their stories.
We're only kids. We're literally youth having mercury symptoms already from our lake, our home.
That's why my friends call me Freddie Mercury. Because I sing Bohemian Rhapsody a lot. I have many health conditions that I shouldn't be dealing with at my age as a Canadian. It's been a half a century since 10 tons of toxic mercury was dumped into our rivers. It's poisoned the fish and had a devastating impact on our people. I have trouble speaking, like I have speech impairments, I have learning disabilities. Bonjour, being again. Mamma mia, mamma mia. People call me Darwin, but my traditional name is Brown Eagle. Welcome to Grassy Narrows. Grassy Narrows! Grassy Narrows! Or as we call it, a Subscriptiogang. We live in a First Nations reserve in Western Ontario, Canada. We call ourselves the Anishinaabe. We've been living on these shores for as long as anyone can remember. Today is a special day because we're at the Grassy Narrows powwow. The powwow brings a lot of people together. Like it brings other communities and it brings people from the outside. It's where the whole community comes together to celebrate what it means to be a Anishinaabe.
Are you gonna swallow my camera?
During the 1960s and 70s, a paper mill upstream was using mercury to make paper. They dumped over 10 tons of mercury into our river. It's Canada's worst health crisis, but the government wants to keep it quiet. We're not going to let them.
We will not stand by and let people die. Not today, not no more. This changes now.
What makes it worse is that the government knew about the poisoning for decades but chose to ignore it. There's been a half a century of denial and inaction.
People did us dirty. We're all victims of mercury poisoning.
Mercury poisoning attacks the nervous system. Many people suffer from learning disabilities, numbness, coordination problems, speech problems, and loss of vision.
I'm starting to feel numbness right here. And I can start to feel like my bones ache right here. Yeah, see, do you see my pinky there? Like, do you see how it's moving? I'm literally like not doing anything.
We've had to work hard to keep our traditions alive. Fishing has fed us for thousands of years. At one time, it created good jobs for our community. Once the mercury been dumped, all the camps shut down, and people stopped coming to the reserve because of that issue. And the government said, you can't fish on the river because this high amounts of mercury been dumped into your system.
We were made to go out and fish and go hunting and all that. We never got the experience of how it was a long time ago, fishing freely without getting sick of something.
I kind of feel like we lost a big part of ourselves due to that dumping, It's quite sad to see, we were such a happy community, we loved our families and that, Now it's effective people because us being told we're sick. But it didn't have to be this way. The youth of Grassy should be living very different lives. I want the youth to have the best future they can ever have, better than our future, because being sick is a rough life, it's a sad life. The government did something wrong. They destroyed thousands of lives. And the kids shouldn't say today, oh, I'm poisoned by mercury, That's a life a Canadian shouldn't deal with, We need cleaner, healthier rivers and care for all of us that are affected by mercury poisoning.
It's just amazing to see how far our voices could get. I want them to get even further.
And that's where you come in. With your help, we'll take this fight global.
We can't stop now. We've come so far.
Thanks, Liz. So I'll just talk a little bit about River Run logistically and demand-wise, what the goals are, and then I'll open up for some questions, and I'll share to the ways Grassy's looking for support. So River Run, as you may have seen, will be on September 18th at noon. We've just announced that the location will be Grange Park. So for those who came to the Land Alliance March last year, it's the same park. We started, it'll be we don't know where it'll start this year, actually. We'll announce that soon. We'll have an intersection and a map, but Grange Park is behind OCAD and behind the AGO. Grassy's looking for a couple things this year in their demands. One is compensation for all. So it's a demand they've had for a long time to be compensated financially for the mercury poisoning experience so they can begin to rebuild their lives. And the other big main demand is to be able to have control over their lives and their lands. So you may have seen in the news a few months ago, Grassy's suing the provincial government for the mining act as unconstitutional. There are 10,000 mining claims on their territory right now. They want no mining claims. They want no forestry. They're dealing with a nuclear storage waste near them in Ignace. They just want to be able to live their lives on their land. So those are the two main demands coming out. September 18th at 12 p.m., Grange Park. And there is a couple different ways to help out. So most immediately, if anyone is free on Labor Day, Monday, we're looking for some folks to help flyer. I'll drop my email in the chat, but we'd love to go there. We've been offered a table to hand out some flyers. There's a newsletter you can sign up for at freegrassy.net that I'll put in the chat. And there's a volunteer link that I'll add in the chat too, if you'd like to help on the day of. And then we've got an action toolkit that you can use for all kinds of things, petitions, movie screenings. You can share it. I'm sure many of you are connected to things like unions and volunteer clubs and faith groups and all kinds of other places. And if you're calling from other cities, namely Ottawa, Montreal, Hamilton, Guelph, Kingston, or Kitchener-Waterloo, we've got buses coming from all of those places, which I'll share those links as well, so you can sign up, share with anyone you know in that neighborhood. I'm going to pause now for anyone who has some questions, and I'll drop some of the things I named in the chat.